On a damp spring morning in the vast grounds of Howletts Zoo in the heart of England, Tani Aspen woke up to the sound of birds and the scent of pure, damp earth. Tani is the only daughter of Darman Aspen. The visionary environmentalist spent an extraordinary childhood between her family's care and her concern for creatures that, to many, were just characters in documentaries or symbols of conservation. Since she was young, Tani was introduced to the zoo's gorillas. Her father believed that building bonds between humans and animals from an early age could foster a new generation of passionate and dedicated conservationists. Jalta and Bemz soon became Western gorillas. Tani's inseparable companions were majestic creatures, but with her, they were gentle giants, capable of expressing an almost human tenderness. Tani learned to walk under the watchful eyes of Jalta, who would sometimes extend his hairy arm to steady her when she stumbled over tree roots. On the other hand, Bemz was her playmate. He loved rolling in the grass with Tani, filling the air with laughter and soft whispers. They shared fruit meals at lunchtime, and Bemz would gently take slices of apple from Tani's small hand. This harmonious coexistence between the girl and the gorillas was under the careful supervision of the caregiver and Dam himself, who documented every interaction, hoping that one day he could show the world that peaceful coexistence between species is possible and beneficial. On her 5th birthday, Tani received a necklace from her father with a small silver gorilla pendant. This necklace was a symbol of her lasting commitment to her friends and to the mission of conservation. Dam knelt beside her, fastening the necklace around her neck, and said with a proud smile, "You, my dear, are a bridge between our worlds. The gorillas accept you as one of their own, and that is a precious gift and a great responsibility." The early years of Tani's life were marked by a deep sense of purpose and an invaluable love for her gorilla companions. She grew up knowing that every moment with Jalta and Bemz was a lesson in life, teaching her respect, care, and the intricate web of life that connects all creatures. However, as in all stories of growth and learning, the day would come when Tani would have to face an important truth. Her friends would have to return to the wild, where they belong, to lead their own groups and contribute to the preservation of their species. This farewell, though necessary, was one of the most challenging and formative moments in her life. As she grew older, Tani also began to understand the complexity of her father's work and the broader goals of the organization he led. She knew that the days of innocent play with Jalta and Bemz would not last forever, and that above all, they were ambassadors of their kind, destined to live independent lives in the forest. At the age of 11, the reality of this separation knocked on Tani's door. An autumn morning marked the occasion. Long discussions between the conservationists, biologists, and her father were underway as they prepared for Jalta and Bemz to move into the wild as part of the Foundation's reintegration program. For Tani, despite her pride in the important role her friends would play in preserving their species, the news was a painful blow. On the day of departure, the sanctuary was bustling with final preparations. The transport crates, filled with comforts and familiar items for the gorillas, were carefully inspected. Tani spent every possible moment beside Jalta and Bemz, speaking to them gently, reinforcing the sense of safety and love that Tani felt. Despite her role, she whispered words filled with emotion, "To a place where you can truly be free, where you belong." Jalta, with a steady gaze, gently touched Tani's head, as if understanding the significance of the moment. The farewell was a mix of tears and smiles, strengthened by her conviction that this was the right thing to do. Tani waved until the trucks disappeared from sight, carrying a large part of her heart with them. The following years were years of growth and learning for Tani, who immersed herself in studying environmental conservation and biology, determined to continue her family's legacy. She never stopped missing her gorilla friends, and the hope of seeing them again shone in her heart like an unextinguishable flame. At the age of 23, driven by longing and the desire to make sure Galta and Bemz had been successfully reintegrated. Tani organized a trip to visit them in the nature reserve where they had been released, accompanied by a team of documentary filmmakers and biologists. She set out on this emotional journey, armed with hope and fear of the unknown. When she arrived at the reserve, the dense greenery of the rainforest welcomed them. Tani felt as if she had traveled back in time, with the smells and sounds of the forest bringing back vivid memories of her childhood. She spent the following days tracking the gorillas using location collars that had been carefully placed on the animals before their release. Then, on a rainy afternoon, while they were walking along a muddy trail, everyone noticed a slight movement in the dense vegetation. Their hearts were beating fast, cameras ready, all eyes on Tani, waiting for the moment that would define the journey as they moved forward cautiously. Every sound in the forest seemed amplified. Every crack of a branch, every distant bird call created a soundscape that was both beautiful and frightening at the same time. Tani led the group, feeling the weight of expectations on her shoulders. Her eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, trying to distinguish any movement that might indicate the presence of her former companions. The hours passed slowly, and the sun began to lean westward, casting long shadows across the trees. The local guide, a man named Ian who knew the forest like the back of his hand, signaled everyone to stay quiet. They had entered an area where Galta and Bemz had recently been spotted, according to the trackers. Tani felt a mix of excitement and tension. She knew that the gorillas, even if they recognized her presence, could have changed a lot after years. In the forest, they were no longer the little animals that used to play in the garden. Now, they had become leaders of their own groups. Suddenly, Ian stopped and silently pointed to a dense bush in front of them. There were subtle movements visible, and a low humming sound could be heard. Tani's heartbeat quickened. She held her breath, her camera ready in her hand as she tried to control her trembling from anticipation. The vegetation moved more intensely, and then a majestic figure slowly appeared. It was Bemz, distinguished by his piercing gaze and commanding presence. He stopped and looked directly at Tani. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. Was it a look of recognition or just curiosity? Tani couldn't be sure. Bemz took a step forward, his imposing presence unsettling. Tani felt the tension among her team members. Everyone was aware of the potential danger of an adult gorilla in its natural habitat. Tani herself felt a respectful fear mixed with a desperate hope for connection. She took a step forward, moving slightly away from the group, and spoke gently, using the same tone she used as a child. "Bemz, it's me, Tani," she said in a trembling but clear voice. There was no guarantee that Bemz would understand her words, but she hoped that the familiar tone might stir some memories. The gorilla tilted his head, watching her intently. Everyone held their breath as they witnessed this silent exchange. After a moment of tension, Bemz let out a low, soft hum that Tani recognized as a sign of recognition or greeting. Ian whispered to the team to stay calm and not make any sudden movements. Everyone was aware that they were at a critical point where any action could be interpreted as a threat. Bemz took another step forward while Tani remained still. Tani stayed motionless, her heart pounding so hard she feared it might be heard. Then, slowly, the gorilla came closer, its posture relaxing a bit, a sign of possible acceptance. As Bemz approached, Tani felt a mix of relief and joy flow through her. The tension in the air began to fade as Bemz continued to make low grunts, which Tani interpreted as signs of recognition. She remembered these sounds from her childhood. They were the same reassuring noises he used to make when they were together in the garden. Bemz stopped a few steps away from Tani. His large brown eyes were suddenly fixed on her with a touch of unexpected gentleness for a creature of his size. He reached out his arm and gently touched Tani's arm. It was a shy gesture, but full of meaning. Tani overcame her initial fear, reached out, and touched Bemz's hand, feeling the familiarity of that rough skin. An emotional smile formed on her lips, while her eyes filled with tears. Then Bemz did something that amazed everyone. He gently pulled Tani into his arms and hugged her. It was a cautious hug, but a firm one. He made sure she was really there with him. Tani hugged him back, feeling a wave of emotions overflowing inside her. The meeting was more than she had hoped for. The documentary filmmakers, who kept a respectful distance, were documenting every moment of this touching reunion, aware of the rarity and beauty of the scene unfolding before them. Tani and Bemz remained in an embrace for a long time, a meeting that transcended the barriers between species, celebrating a friendship deeply rooted in the past and reaffirmed in that magical moment. After the emotional reunion, Tani spent a few hours observing Bemz and his group in the forest, watching his interactions with the other gorillas. It was clear that he was a respected leader and cared for his family. Watching him in his natural environment gave Tani a new perspective on the importance of the conservation work her family had embraced. He was living proof that efforts to reintroduce animals into their natural habitats can succeed, a testament to her father's legacy. As evening approached, Tani knew it was time to say goodbye once again. With heavy hearts, she approached Bemz to say a final goodbye. This time, there were no tears, only gratitude and contentment. She whispered her farewell, promising to continue fighting for the cause that had brought them together. For his part, Bemz seemed to understand that this moment was a farewell. With one last gentle look and a soft touch of his hand, he turned and returned to his family, disappearing among the dense forest trees. Tani returned to civilization, carrying with her not only the memories of this emotional encounter, but also a renewed passion for environmental conservation. She was determined to follow in her father's footsteps, expanding and strengthening efforts to ensure a future where humans and animals can coexist in peace. Bemz's farewell reinforced her commitment to this future and inspired her to dedicate her life to protecting wildlife and preserving the natural world. This encounter, which was documented in photos that soon spread around the world, became a powerful symbol of the possible relationship between humans and animals, and a moving testimony to the urgent need to protect the environment as well as the future of the wilderness.